All right, so today we're going to be doing a deep dive on some fascinating data about millennial migration,
So it's fun.
specifically looking at 2023. And we've got two main sources that we'll be looking at today. The first is a SmartAsset study that utilizes data from the U.S. Census Bureau. And the other is a really interesting study that I found from the Ohio Department of Development.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I think what you'll find interesting about this is this kind of like paradoxical trend where Ohio's overall population is shrinking, but at the same time, Columbus is exploding with millennial newcomers.
Yeah, that is interesting. You don't usually think of Ohio as a
Right.
millennial hotspot.
That's kind of what makes this so interesting, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So let's dig in here. The numbers are really quite something. Over 75,000 millennials moved to Columbus in 2023 alone. That puts it at number 13 nationwide for total millennial move-ins. Yeah, and that puts it ahead of places like San Francisco, Boston, Portland. We're talking about like a massive influx of young people coming into the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to have a huge impact on the city.
Yeah.
Like its vibe, its culture, even its job market, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not even just Columbus, right? Both Cleveland and Cincinnati also saw their millennial populations jump, though not quite as dramatically as Columbus, obviously.
So it sounds like something's drawing millennials to Ohio in general.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to try to figure out, right? Because here's the thing. Ohio overall is actually losing people.
Yeah.
According to the Ohio Department of Development, Ohio lost an estimated 184,281 residents just in 2023.
Wow.
And their projections actually indicate that this trend might continue, with the state's population potentially shrinking by almost 6% by 2050.
So you've got this shrinking state, but you've got this booming city.
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
Yeah, is everyone else just packing up and leaving for other states?
Yeah. Well, outmigration is definitely part of it, for sure. Economic shifts play a role, too. But I think the real head-scratcher here is how Columbus is managing to defy this statewide trend. What is it about Columbus that's making it such a millennial magnet?
All right, so to dig into that a little bit further, let's take a closer look at the SmartAsset study. So this study breaks down millennial migration by age. And just to be clear, they're defining millennials as those born between 1982 and 1996.
Okay.
And they also analyze the reasons behind these moves. Let's see what they found.
All right.
Well, one thing that they highlighted is affordability, especially when you compare Columbus to places like California where housing costs are, astronomical.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it seems like it's not just about saving money. Columbus has also seen a significant boom in its tech sector.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in fact, their tech job growth surpasses the national average,
Wow.
which makes it incredibly attractive to young professionals in that field.
Right. It's not just about cheap rent. It's about opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that raises the question, right, wouldn't other cities with lower costs of living be seeing the same influx of millennials?
That's a good point. What sets Columbus apart?
Yeah, what is it about Columbus? And I think that's where the cultural piece comes in. Columbus has really been cultivating a vibrant arts and culture scene,
Okay.
which I think is a big draw for millennials. They want a place where they can not just work hard, but play hard too, right?
Yeah, I could see that.
And I think Columbus has managed to hit that sweet spot somehow.
So it's like a city finding its groove.
Exactly, yeah. And I think to really understand this phenomenon, we need to kind of zoom out a little bit and look at the national picture of millennial migration.
Okay.
So beyond just Columbus, where else are these folks flocking to?
Good question.
Okay, so we've established that Columbus is doing really well at attracting millennials, but what about the rest of the country? What does the national picture look like?
Well, it's pretty interesting, actually. When you look at the cities with the highest percentage of new millennial residents,
Mm-hmm.
the top spot might surprise you.
Okay.
It's Alexandria, Virginia.
Alexandria,
Yeah.
really. That's not the first place that comes to mind.
Yeah, no, right.
So what's happening there?
Well, Alexandria, along with some of the other cities in the top five, like Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Sandy Springs, Georgia, they all seem to be benefiting from what some experts are calling a spillover effect.
A spillover effect.
Yeah. So basically, they're all located near major metropolitan hubs. In Alexandria's case, it's Washington, D.C. So they offer that proximity to job markets and cultural attractions, but with a slightly more relaxed pace and potentially more affordable housing, too.
So it's like they get the best of both worlds.
Exactly.
Big city perks without the big city chaos.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you think about, like, the preferences of millennials. As they start moving through different life stages, for example, once they start families, Their priorities might shift a little bit.
Oh, of
They
course.
might be looking for more space, better schools, a stronger sense of community.
Things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which these smaller cities can often offer.
That's a really good point. It's not just about being millennial friendly, it's about being life stage friendly.
Exactly.
That's a much better way to put it. But what about the cities that are attracting the highest number of millennials? Are those the usual suspects?
Yeah, when we shift our focus to the raw number of millennial move-ins, the list becomes a lot more familiar. You've got New York, Los Angeles, Houston, Chicago.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, the big cities. They're still drawing in huge numbers of millennials.
So even with the rising living costs, all the hustle and bustle, that big city allure hasn't faded entirely for millennials.
Not entirely. No,
Mm.
it seems like those cities offer a concentration of opportunities. That's hard to find elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Specialized job markets, world-class cultural institutions, a level of diversity and energy
Right.
that appeals to a lot of young people.
All right, so we've seen where millennials are moving to, but what about the flip side of that? What about the cities that they're avoiding? The millennial anti-magnets, so to speak.
Okay, yeah. That's where the data gets really interesting. And it's not just about the raw numbers here. It's about the percentage change in the millennial population.
Okay.
So when we look at the bottom 5 cities, it's a clean sweep for California.
Oh.
Drupa Valley, Santa Ana, Elk Grove, San Bernardino, and Oxnard. They all saw a decrease in their millennial populations in 2023.
Wow. California dreaming turning into a millennial exodus.
It seems like it, yeah.
Why might that be? Is it just the cost of living?
Well, affordability is definitely a major factor, no doubt. California's housing costs are notoriously high, and these cities are no exception.
Yeah.
But the SmartAsset study actually dug a little deeper into the reasons for these moves.
Oh, interesting.
And it seems that the job market also plays a crucial role.
Makes sense.
Some of these cities have experienced slower job growth, especially in the sectors that typically attract millennials, like tech and creative industries.
So it's not just about being able to afford to live somewhere, it's also about finding a good job. That aligns with their skills and aspirations. Makes sense?
Millennials are looking for places where they can build a future, both financially and professionally.
Right.
And if a city can't offer that,
Yeah.
they're probably going to look elsewhere.
So these millennial anti-magnets are actually telling us something really important about what this generation values. It's not just about trendy cafes and craft breweries, right?
Right.
It's about things like economic opportunity and stability.
Yeah. And if we connect this back to what we were talking about earlier, about why a city like Columbus is doing so well, it really highlights how it's not just one thing. It's this combination of factors.
Yeah.
A relatively affordable housing, a growing job market, especially in those sectors that appeal to millennials. And they've really made an effort to build up a vibrant cultural scene.
They're hitting all the right notes.
Yeah, it's like they've cracked the code.
But it makes you wonder, right? Can Columbus keep this momentum going? And can those California cities course correct and attract millennials back?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
And I think they really highlight how dynamic cities are. They're constantly evolving, responding to economic forces, demographic shifts, and ultimately the choices of their residents.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how much power individual choices have.
It's true. Each millennial who decides to move or stay put is shaping the communities around us in a very real way.
Absolutely. And I think, we've uncovered some really fascinating trends in this deep dive, but as always, there's so much more to explore and learn. It just goes to show that demographics are constantly shifting, and understanding those shifts can give us some real insight into the forces that are shaping our world.
I completely agree. I think this deep dive has given us a glimpse into what makes a generation tick. And, this is a generation that's playing a major role in shaping the future of our cities and our society.
Absolutely. So let's do a quick recap. We saw how millennials are drawn to cities that offer that mix of affordability, opportunity, and a vibrant cultural scene. A place where they can really live, work, and play without, breaking the bank.
Yeah. And on the flip side, we saw how those same factors can make other cities less appealing, leading to, a bit of a millennial exodus.
Exactly. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that millennials aren't a monolithic group.
Correct.
They have diverse needs and desires. And those needs evolve as they move through different stages of life.
And that evolution is going to continue to shape the landscape of our cities in ways that we can't even fully predict yet.
It's true. So as we wrap up our deep dive into millennial migration, we're left with a lot to ponder. What does it really mean to be a millennial-friendly city in today's world? Is it just about those things we talked about? Affordable housing, job opportunities, a thriving arts and culture scene? Or is there something else entirely?
That's the question we want to leave you with today. What matters most to you? What would make a city a place where you'd want to put down roots?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with us on social media or shoot us an email. We're always genuinely curious to hear your perspectives.
Keep exploring these questions, stay curious, and keep diving deep into the data and the stories that shape our world.
Until next time, happy diving.